Okay, so we've commented on our methods. We've done most of the fields. We took care of this array list of vertices. We changed it from a vector class to an array list class. We still have left this float x0, y0. Typically, when something has like a subscript of 0, it's the first in a series. So probably that has something to do with that. Let's see. I think actually I think I'm going to make this private since it's a field. And this x0, y0, and then there's this Boolean ready, which really is not very descriptive. So I think what I would do next here is back up and take another look at what the book had to say. So there were a bunch of requirements on page 22, but then on page 23 they give the algorithmic steps for kind of what's going on. And as a programmer, typically you're going to, in addition to having the code, there's going to be some kind of documentation as common. In addition to comments, a lot of times there'll be documentation that kind of talks you through what's going on. So that's what we're going to look at here. So the algorithmic steps are activate the mouse. When the left mouse button is pressed, we're going to get the x and y coordinates at where the mouse is clicked. That makes sense. And then if it's the first vertex, we're going to empty the vertex list. So we're going to empty our list of vertices. This else, I put a strike through here because if you really did this as an else, this wouldn't work. What you want is you have to, if you've clicked on the first vertex, you want to store that first vertex somewhere. So if we only emptied the vertex list and then, if it was the first vertex, if all we did was empty the vertex list, we would be missing the first vertex. So we can't have an else here. We have to this should just be then empty the vertex list, and this if should actually just go right after here. And if you look at the code, actually, there's this bit where we clear the vertices, we get rid of all the vertices. So what did it say? It said if it is the first vertex. So apparently this ready is telling us we're using the first vertex. Okay, so we're obtaining the dimensions. Oh no, I'm sorry. Here we're getting the x and y coordinates where the mouse was clicked, right? And this fx, fy converts them into logical coordinates. And then it said if it's the first vertex, so presumably this ready is telling us it's the first vertex, then we're going to empty the vertex list, right? Well, notice we don't have an else immediately after here because this vertex, which this at this point it's xa, ya, right? It gets installed into our x sub 0, y sub 0. If it's the first vertex, it gets set to x0 and y0 get set to that. And then, but we do actually store it, right? Assuming, all this other stuff falls through, we do have an opportunity to store that first vertex. So, so that we need to that just needs to be fixed. And then if the vertex is inside the tiny triangle or tiny rectangle, then we're going to finish up, complete the polygon. Otherwise, we're going to just store this vertex. Okay. This is a little complicated. I think drawing all the vertexes would be the best first thing to look at. because then we'll get a feel for you know, exactly what all the vertices are and how we're testing to see if we're inside the vertex and that stuff. Okay, so so this last step of drawing all the vertices is basically in our paint method, right? Because it's where we're painting everything. So we want to, first thing we want to do is obtain the dimensions of the drawing rectangle based on logical coordinates and then draw the drawing rectangle. So let's take a look at our paint method here. So so here we're obtaining, notice here, like, remember, our width is the width of our drawing rectangle, right? And our height is the height of our drawing rectangle. So here we're obtaining the dimensions, the logical coordinates, right, of the for the drawing rectangle. Oh, and then we're converting them into device coordinates with this IX stuff. Okay, so so this is actually that bit. It's actually the first two steps, obtaining the dimensions and drawing the drawing rectangles. But because you know, we have left, left, and right, right, and top, top, we have all these variables in common here. I'm just going to take these, but I want to make my code clear that the drawing that's happening here is the drawing rectangle. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to go into refactor and say introduce method and just say draw drawing rectangle and say okay, it's private. Okay, and now it's pulled out that code, just this little bit here, but this is a lot clearer to say, oh, okay, so after I initialize the graphics, then the first thing I'm going to do is draw the drawing rectangle. And in fact, I could probably come up with a better name for this too, right? Like, how about init graphics data, something like that. Right. So now we see, okay, so we're initializing the graphics data, we're drawing the drawing rectangle, and then we do this bit about, it says the next step is get the first vertex from the vertex list. So why do we do this here? Why do we check the size here, and then if n equals 0, return? Well, if there aren't any objects in the list, then this isn't going to work very well, right? So, but I think we can do better. What I want to do is like do a test here, and if, let's say, like if the vertices size is bigger than 0, then do the rest of this rather than have this return statement in the middle. So return statements in the middle, sometimes that can be effective, but sometimes it can really you know, mess you up. It can get confusing. So I'm going to pull all of this stuff out, because this is the stuff now that draws the polygon with the, you know, the tiny rectangle and all that stuff. Alright, so I'm highlighting everything from here down, and I'm going to say draw a polygon. How about? So let's refactor that and introduce method draw polygon. Okay. Alright, so that takes care of that. And now what I want to do here is I want to say if vertices size is bigger than 0, that's when I want to do my draw polygon. And I'll just pass this n in as a like this. And that way I don't have to create an extra variable. And let me just format that. Okay, so now it's a little bit clearer here what's going on. We're still going to want to dive into this draw polygon a little bit deeper to see what's happening with the tiny rectangle and all that. But I think this, at least now, it's clear what's going on with the paint method. We initialize the graphics data, we draw the drawing triangle, then if we actually have some vertices, then we draw the polygon using those vertices. Alright, and let's just make sure we haven't broken anything. File. Yeah, looks like we're still drawing stuff. And let's do our test to make sure we can still, if we do a line, yep, that still works. And if we do a point and then just click right inside that point, yep. Okay, so we're good and we're ready in the next video to start taking this draw polygon bit apart more.